What if I told you that you've already written your future with thoughts you barely remember thinking? Have you ever wondered why certain patterns keep repeating in your life, like a song stuck on loop? Why do you meet the same kind of people, fall into the same conflicts, feel the same aching emptiness, no matter how much you achieve? Could it be that your reality isn't random at all, but a perfect mirror of your inner world? In Buddhist Zen teachings, it's said that karma is not a form of punishment. Karma is memory, and not just in your mind, but in the energy your soul keeps sending out every single day. This isn't some abstract concept or moral scorecard from the universe. This is something real, something you feel when the same painful lessons keep knocking at your door, disguised as love, failure, or missed chances. But here's the truth no one tells you. You can change it all the moment you understand what karma is. So take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear may not only change how you see the world, it may change how the world responds to you. Let's begin. Law 1, cause and reflection. What you are is what you receive. Life doesn't punish, it reflects. Have you ever looked at your life and asked, why does this keep happening to me? Why do I always attract unavailable partners, toxic jobs, or friends who disappear the moment I need them most? It's tempting to think we're unlucky or cursed. But what if life isn't punishing you? It's mirroring you. In Zen, we say, when the water is still, the moon reflects perfectly. When the water is agitated, everything breaks apart. The world is not here to judge us. It simply shows us who we are beneath the surface. Like a mirror, it reveals the face we forgot we were wearing. I once knew a man, kind-hearted, thoughtful, but he constantly found himself betrayed. Friends lied, business partners cheated. Time and again, he felt wounded and confused. I don't deserve this, he would say, and he didn't, at least not consciously. But over time, he realized he was carrying a deep-rooted belief. People can't be trusted. Without meaning to, he projected that fear outward. He became guarded, paranoid, suspicious. And guess what kind of energy that created? It's not magic, it's resonance. We attract not what we want, but what we vibrate. This is why Zen doesn't focus on fixing the outside world. We don't repaint the mirror, we cleanse the face. Scientifically, this aligns with how perception works. Our brains are designed to seek confirmation. If you believe people are cruel, your mind will highlight every insult and ignore every act of kindness. The lens becomes reality. Emotionally, this creates a feedback loop. You expect betrayal, so you pull away first, and in doing so, push others away. It's like locking the doors of your heart and wondering why no one comes inside. The great shift occurs when we understand that if I want more peace in my life, I must become more peaceful within myself. Not perfectly, not all at once, but just a little more still. Like water settling after a storm. And in that stillness, what you see and what comes will begin to change. Let's continue now, because the second law of karma will flip how you see effort and control forever. Law 2, intention and creation. You are the artist of your karma. The brush is in your hand. What will you paint next? Here's a curious question for you. If your life were a painting, would you hang it on your wall? Every masterpiece begins with a single brushstroke. In the same way, every chapter of your life begins with a single thought, a whisper of intention, but the real magic. Most of us are painting without even realizing we're holding the brush. In Zen, there's a quiet truth. Your mind is the garden. Your thoughts are the seeds. You harvest what you plant. It sounds poetic, but it's deeply practical. What we dwell on, we build. What we repeat, we become. Think about it. Every habit you have started out as just one thought. I'm tired. I'm not good enough. I'll never get there. And if you repeated it enough, that little thought hardened into a belief. That belief sculpted your daily actions. And those actions, they created your life. I remember a phase in my 20s when I believed I wasn't meant to succeed. Not because I lacked talent, but because I had quietly adopted the belief that others deserved it more than I did. Without realizing it, I was saying no to opportunities. I was shrinking myself, all because of a silent, invisible script I didn't know I was reading from. Now here's the twist. Once I changed that inner script, even slightly, the story changed too. I began to say yes. I started speaking up. And slowly the outer world shifted to meet the new version I was writing. The same applies to you. Whether you realize it or not, you are scripting your reality. Every expectation you hold becomes a silent instruction to the universe. If you expect people to abandon you, guess what? You'll unconsciously push them away first. If you expect your life to stay stuck, you'll avoid the very choices that would free you. But here's the liberating truth. You can choose a new brushstroke at any moment. Science quietly backs this with what we now know about neuroplasticity, that the brain rewires itself based on what you focus on consistently. You're not stuck. You're in motion, and every tiny shift matters. So I ask you, not as a teacher, but as a friend, what are you planting today? Because karma is not some invisible judge in the sky. Karma is you, today, making a small choice that echoes into tomorrow. Ready for a plot twist? Let's talk about what happens when you resist seeing the pebble in your shoe in the next law. Law 3, humility in the mirror. Healing begins with truth. You cannot clean a mirror if you keep blaming the dust. Let me ask you something deeply personal. Have you ever walked through life with a pebble in your shoe, yet kept blaming the road? It's such a tiny thing, a stone. But if ignored, it changes how you walk, how you stand, even how you see the journey. At first, it's just a discomfort, but over time, it becomes your new normal. And strangely, we adjust. We say, maybe this is just how life feels. But the real shift doesn't happen until, at last, you stop, take off the shoe, and admit, this pain isn't the world's fault. It's something I've been carrying. In Zen, the mind is like a mirror. It's naturally clear and reflective. But when it's covered in dust, our fears, our pride, our old stories, we don't see life as it is. We only see the smudge. Humility is the soft cloth, and the truth is the hand that reaches for it. There was a time when I couldn't admit how angry I was. I kept smiling, nodding, being the good person. While inside, I felt like I was boiling. I blamed others, my job, my family, the unfairness of it all. But the real turning point came one quiet night, sitting in silence. I finally whispered to myself, I'm angry because I feel invisible. I'm angry because I've abandoned myself. And in that admission came the healing. Not all at once, but that single act of honesty was the moment the mirror began to clear. You see, the universe doesn't respond to what we pretend to feel. It responds to what we carry. When you deny your truth, you distort your frequency. But when you acknowledge it, even with trembling hands, you realign. That's not weakness. That's courage. From a psychological lens, avoidance only reinforces the cycle. When we suppress pain, it doesn't disappear, it leaks into our relationships, our bodies, and our choices. But when we allow ourselves to see, we give that pain a path out. This law is not about shame, it's about honesty. There is no shame in saying, I've been hurt, or I've been the one hurting. The moment we stop resisting the mirror, it starts reflecting our wholeness again. So if you're feeling stuck, anxious, or numb, ask yourself, what truth am I ready to face? Remember, it's not the dust that defines the mirror, it's your willingness to clean it. Let's now move into the next sacred law, where the mirror meets motion and growth begins. Law 4, growth in inner weather. You bring the sky with you. Even if you move to paradise, you'll still carry your storm unless you heal it. Have you ever dreamed of starting over? A new city, a new job, a new relationship? It feels like an escape, a clean slate. But here's the twist. No matter where you go, you bring the sky with you. Your thoughts, your wounds, your unspoken stories. They don't pack themselves neatly in a suitcase. They ride on your shoulders like invisible weather. One of my clients once said to me, I moved 2,000 miles to get away from my anxiety, and it still found me by Tuesday. We laughed, but underneath that laugh was a truth we all feel. Location doesn't cure internal storms. In Zen Buddhism, there is no fixed self, only patterns we reinforce. This means every moment is a brushstroke on the canvas of who we're becoming. We are not bound by who we were yesterday unless we keep painting the same lines. And here's something wonderful. Our brains aren't set in stone. The pathways that tell us we're not safe, not enough, not loved, those can be rewired, but only if we stop trying to outrun them and start gently meeting them. You see, healing doesn't happen on the beach. It happens when you sit down with your storm and say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm ready to learn from you. Because often the storm isn't the enemy, it's the messenger. I remember a time when I thought a relationship would fix my loneliness. I believed if I found the right partner, I'd stop feeling like something was missing. But the relationship ended and the emptiness remained. That's when I realized I was outsourcing the weather of my heart. I was hoping someone else would bring the sunshine. But the truth is, the clouds were mine, and so was the power to let them part. The law of growth teaches us the outer world is only ever a reflection of the inner one. We don't grow by replacing the scenery, we grow by renewing the seeker. There's a bit of humor in it too. I always say, if your suitcase is full of anxiety, don't expect a beach to unpack it for you. Because even the sandiest shores can't compete with the stories we refuse to face. But here's the beauty. Once you start changing your sky, just a little, the whole landscape begins to shift. People notice. Synchronicities appear. You find peace where there used to be noise. And suddenly, you're not waiting for paradise. You are it. So before we chase another escape, let's pause. Let's breathe. And let's ask, what inside me is ready to grow so that wherever I go, I bring more light with me. And now let's continue to the next truth, the law of responsibility, where the winds of change truly begin within. Law 5, responsibility and response. You are the calm in the storm. You can't stop the storm, but you can learn to stand still inside it. What if I told you that your healing doesn't begin when life gets easier, but when you get softer? That your strength isn't measured by how much chaos you avoid, but by how much calm you can carry within. Let's be honest. Life throws storms, some small and passing, others loud, unfair, and gut-wrenching. Heartbreak, illness, betrayal, trauma. These aren't just poetic metaphors. They're real, and for many of us, they've shaped the very way we breathe. But here's where the twist comes in. While you can't control the storm, you can choose your umbrella. And sometimes, that umbrella is the way you respond. The pause before reacting, the breath instead of the outburst, the choice to stay grounded when your world tries to pull you apart. Zen teachings remind us, a tree that bends with the wind doesn't break. Flexibility is resilience. Not everything in life must be fought. Some things are simply weathered. There's a powerful image I hold close. Life is the sky, and emotions are weather. You don't blame the sky for raining, you just grab a jacket. In the same way, when chaos arrives, we get to choose our clothing. Will we wear peace or panic, compassion or control? I remember a moment when someone I loved lashed out at me, unfairly and painfully. My first instinct was defense. Words lined up on my tongue like soldiers. But something in me paused. I stepped away, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. And that stillness, it changed everything. Not instantly, but it planted a seed of grace in both of us. Psychologically, we now know that our nervous system has two modes, reaction or regulation. The more we practice choosing stillness over spiraling, the more our brain rewires itself. It becomes easier, gentler, like carving a new river through rock. And let's not forget the gentle law of attraction here. The energy we meet chaos with shapes what it becomes. If you bring fire to fire, it rages. If you bring stillness, sometimes, just sometimes, it dies out quietly. So let me ask you, what outfit will you wear to your next storm? Don't worry, you don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to start choosing differently, day by day, breath by breath, until calm becomes your new weather pattern. Now let's continue to the next karmic lesson, the law of connection, where even your smallest moments echo far beyond what you see. Law 6, inner being and connection, everything affects everything. There's no such thing as a small act. What if I told you that one single smile could echo across a lifetime? That your silence in a moment of anger might save a relationship or even a life? Here's the quiet truth most people miss. Nothing you do is ever just about you. Every breath, every choice, every whispered word we share is part of a web that holds all of us. In Buddhist tradition, this is known as interbeing, the understanding that nothing and no one exists alone. We rise together. We fall together. It's a beautiful thought until you realize the responsibility it carries. Let's imagine a pond. You toss in a tiny pebble, barely a sound, but the ripples, they touch every edge of that water. That's your smile, your patience, or your sarcasm, your bitterness. You are tossing pebbles every single day. And the question is, what kind of ripples are you creating? I remember once, years ago, I was at a cafe and overheard a young man talking about ending his life. I didn't know what to say, so I just looked him in the eye and asked, "Are you okay?" That conversation ended in quiet tears and the beginning of therapy. I didn't do anything special. I just didn't stay silent. It taught me the smallest gesture could be someone's turning point. From a psychological lens, our nervous systems co-regulate, meaning your calm can calm someone else. Your warmth helps regulate someone's fear. You become a tuning fork for peace just by being present. And the energetic ripple, the law of attraction doesn't stop at your doorstep. What you radiate not only returns, it multiplies. A single moment of generosity, of kindness, can trigger a cascade that shifts the day or the destiny of another. And here's the twist that haunts me gently. The kindness you hold back today could have saved someone's future. We never truly know the weight of our presence, our patience, our choice to respond gently instead of react harshly. We are not isolated flames. We are one great fire, burning brighter when we feed each other's light. So next time you think it doesn't matter, remember, it always matters. Let's move now to another profound truth, the law of focus, and explore why what you give your attention to becomes the lens through which you see your life. Law 7, focus and flow. Where your energy goes, life grows. Don't feed the fire you're trying to put out. Ever notice how the more you obsess over a problem, the bigger it feels? Like trying to stop a fire by tossing it more wood, then wondering why it won't die out. Here's the quiet truth. Your attention is nourishment, and what you feed with your attention grows, emotionally, spiritually, karmically. In Buddhist thought, mindfulness is not just a practice. It's the art of choosing where your life flows. The Buddha once said, "With our thoughts, we make the world." What he meant was, the mind is not just a receiver of reality, it's the lens shaping it. Imagine your attention as water. If you keep pouring it on weeds, fears, regrets, judgments, don't be surprised if your inner garden becomes tangled and heavy. And yet we often do just that. We ruminate, we reply, we scroll for hours, feeding anxiety like it's a houseplant. Then we wonder why joy can't bloom. Psychologically, the mind has a built-in mechanism that explains this: the reticular activating system. It's like a doorman at the club of your awareness, letting in only what you've told it to look for. If you're constantly focused on scarcity, it'll keep pointing out everything you lack. But if you shift that focus, even slightly, it begins to highlight what supports you. There was a season in my life when I thought I was unlucky. Nothing worked. Everything seemed stuck. But when I began ending each night by noting 3 simple things that went well, just 3, I started noticing more. Noticing shifted my mood. My mood shifted my choices. And my choices rewrote the script. Zen teaches that your breath only fills the space you allow. If you're shallow in your attention, your life becomes small, suffocated. But when you allow your awareness to deepen, even in chaos, you create room. Room for healing. Room for clarity. Room for grace. Here's the twist. You don't need to control the world to shift your life. You only need to redirect your gaze. Energy flows where attention goes. So, what are you watering today? Let's now explore a truth few dare to examine: the law of giving and receiving, and why holding back may be the reason your abundance has been waiting at the door. Law 8, generosity and openness. The more you give, the lighter you become. You don't lose energy by giving, you release what blocks you. Here's a paradox that most of us feel, but few understand. Why is it that when we give something, our time, our kindness, even our smile, we often feel fuller, not emptier? Maybe giving isn't depletion, maybe it's unburdening. There's a story I'll never forget. A woman once told me she worked retail during college, and a man came in, rude, demanding, clearly having a bad day. She could have snapped back. Instead, she chose patience, a soft tone, a sincere wish that he'd find peace. Years later, she walked into a job interview. Same man. He remembered her and hired her on the spot, not for her resume, but her energy. That's karma. Not as punishment or reward, but as return. A current that circles back when least expected. In Buddhism, the practice of dana, or selfless giving, is not about charity, it's about space. When we give without clinging, we open our hands. And when our hands are open, guess what? Life has somewhere to place its blessings. Modern psychology quietly agrees. Acts of giving, especially without expectation, stimulate well-being, empathy, and even reduce stress hormones. Generosity isn't just noble, it's healing. And not just for others, but for you. Think of your inner world as a room. The more clutter you keep, resentment, fear, guardedness, the harder it is for light to get in. But every act of generosity is like opening a window. Fresh air rushes in, you breathe again. Here's a gentle question to sit with. What are you holding on to that's keeping your hands too full to receive? Maybe it's pride. Maybe it's old hurt. Maybe it's just habit, the habit of holding. Sometimes the moment we give, we're not giving something away. We're letting something go. And in that letting go, we become lighter, clearer, closer to the person we were meant to be. So the next time you hesitate before giving, remember, you're not losing anything. You're making room. Let's now enter a deeper reflection on the law of presence, because everything you want to receive begins where your feet are now. Law 9, stillness and presence. The present moment is the portal to healing. You can't change the past or predict the future, but you can open your eyes now. Let me ask you something personal. When was the last time you truly sat with yourself? Not with your phone, not with a plan, not with a problem. Just you, breathing. There's a quiet truth we often overlook in our hyperspeed lives. You can't fix what's behind you, and you can't control what's ahead. But you can show up here, and sometimes just showing up is the greatest healing of all. In Zen, there's an image of a lake. When agitated, its surface breaks, and nothing is clear. But when still, the water becomes a mirror. Only then can it reflect the truth, your mind, your body, your entire karmic imprint. They settle in stillness, and what emerges is clarity. There's no magic here, just presence, just 5 minutes. Sit quietly, feel the weight of your body, the breath in your nose, the rising and falling of this very moment. You don't need incense. You don't need perfect posture. You just need you arriving fully into now. Funny thing, when I started doing this, I expected some grand spiritual moment. You know, the clouds parting and truth descending like thunder. What came? Silence. And in that silence, something soft, like a whisper I hadn't heard in years. Myself. Your nervous system recalibrates in the presence. Your perception shifts. Your cravings soften. What once felt urgent becomes less so. The noise fades and a deep knowing begins to rise. There's a line I carry in my heart like a gentle bell. Sitting quietly, doing nothing. Spring comes, and the grass grows by itself. That's the law of stillness, not inactivity, but non-interference. Trusting that life unfolds best when we stop gripping so hard. So here's my challenge to you, 5 minutes a day. No phone, no fixing, just being. Let that be your karmic reset. Because the most powerful thing you can do is simply be. And now, let's talk about change. Not external, but the kind that rewrites everything from the inside out. Law 10, change and rebirth. The pattern breaks when you do. If you keep repeating, the universe assumes you're still learning. Have you ever caught yourself saying, "Why does this keep happening to me?" Same arguments, same heartbreak, same stuckness, almost like life is a rerun you didn't ask for. Here's the truth. The universe doesn't punish. It simply echoes patterns until we choose something different. In Buddhism, karma isn't destiny. It's not some rigid prison cell. It's momentum, the gentle snowball of habit rolling downhill. And the beautiful part? You can stop at mid-slope. You don't need a dramatic life overhaul. Sometimes the pattern ends with a single pause, a single breath. Think of your life like a record player. If the needle keeps catching on the same scratch, it's not the song that's broken. It's where the needle's stuck. The moment you lift it, even slightly, the music continues. A new verse begins. Let's talk practically. Try waking up 1 minute earlier. Smile before you check your phone. Speak one kind word in the middle of silence. Change one small thing, and the rhythm of your day starts to shift. And soon the rhythm of your life follows. There was a time I kept choosing the same kind of relationships, ones that mirrored my deepest fears, not my deepest truth. It wasn't until I paused and asked, what is it in me that keeps inviting this in? That the loop began to soften. That question became a doorway, a new chapter. Here's something I wish someone had told me earlier. You don't need to be a whole new person. Just be new in this moment. New breath, new choice. That's enough. Change is not a hurricane. It's a breeze that begins by opening one window. And if that feels too small to matter, remember, a single degree of shift turns a straight path into an entirely different destination. Karma isn't punishment. It's your invitation to wake up. If you've made it here, pause and breathe. Let everything we've explored settle gently in your chest like warm sunlight after a storm. We began with the mirror. Understanding that the world doesn't judge you, it reflects you. Then we picked up the brush and remembered that your intentions are the strokes painting your life. We walked barefoot into truth, took off our old shoes, and faced the pebbles we've been blaming for years. We realized that paradise isn't a place, it's the weather we carry within. And along the way, we learned how every smile, every silence, every storm, and every seed of kindness shapes this great web of life, where everything is connected and nothing is too small. So if you've ever felt stuck, broken, or forgotten, maybe life wasn't punishing you. Maybe it was calling you back to center, back to simplicity, back to presence. Let me ask you now, which karmic law touched your heart the most? Was it the law of reflection, stillness, responsibility? Take just one of them and live it today. Practice it. Try it in a conversation, in a choice, in a quiet moment. And if this message opens something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who might need it. Leave a comment below about your favorite law, and subscribe if you'd like more moments like this. Honest, healing, and real. Because healing isn't fixing, it's returning, and the universe is always ready to meet you there.